Welcome to the Society Pod, a podcast for entrepreneurs, marketers, and leaders. Here's your host, Jessica Yarmy.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of the Society Pod. This episode is actually the first episode that I recorded, and it was somewhat of the inspiration for starting the Society Pod. Whenever I have people reach out to me and just want to jump on a call and talk, I always take those calls and I usually stack them on Fridays. And so this particular Friday, I stacked 3 calls together, and I just had the thought that there's people out there who could benefit from sitting in on these calls and hearing the back and forth, hearing the concerns of some people in my network. And so I just figured I would start to record them as a podcast. So this was the very first one that I did, and it is inspiring the Society Pod in general, but I'm also inspired to create a certain type of podcast episode called Q&A Day. And this is going to not just be me interviewing a guest, but really more conversational and back and forth, and me sharing some of my opinions on things. So welcome to the very first Q&A day on the Society Pod. This episode is with Rania Osburn. Welcome to the Q&A day on the Society Pod. I have Rania here, who's an ex-colleague of mine, and I would give them your whole bio and background, but why don't you start off with introducing yourself, where you're from, and then you can chime in with how we know each other.
My name is Rania Osburn, and I used to work with Jessica at a fitness brand that we both worked at many, many years ago. It was awesome. I really enjoyed our time together, and I enjoyed that brand. I enjoyed working there and all the experience we got there. But so my background is in marketing, advertising and marketing. I've got like 20 plus years of advertising and marketing experience. Last few years, I've been working more as an account manager, and I just really want to get back into branding and marketing again. I know you're really good at it. From what I've seen on LinkedIn, on Instagram, all your ventures since you departed the other brand. So I am just really, really interested in hearing about how you did it. I mean, I saw your struggle right after, and I'm just so impressed and so proud of you for how you handled yourself and how you came, like, you're gangbusters. I mean, I think you're a huge success story, in my opinion, in my eyes. And so I really want to understand, as someone who's more of an introvert, and looking at you and your successes, I really just wanted to find out, like, how did you do it? How did you become really strategic about your career? How did you decide your direction? How did you go about networking? And how did you just knock it out the park?
Well, I think we could start by saying the company name, because it's important to know it's Gold's Gym. So we met working on one of the most recognizable brands in the world, right? And it was a small team, and it was you holding a lot of the daily to-do list for the most recognizable brand in the world. I get laid off, and it's kind of that moment of like, what do I do now? And I was on the bench for 6 months where I was just applying to job boards, and I don't even want to say networking because that makes it sound a little bit more intentional than it was. But I was on LinkedIn at that point, but I wasn't as active as I am now. So I had some connections, but not a lot of connections. So it was a super dark time for me. And that's when you reached out, I was like, oh, absolutely, we need to have this conversation, because I think there are so many people who are going through this right now, where layoffs are happening at a rapid pace this time of year. It's happening a lot to people who are work from home people, like incrementally high layoffs of work from home people. And I'm in the work from home world. I know you're in the work from home world. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about, like, what does it take to be in a comeback season? That's really what I had to go through at Gold's, and the place that you're in right now, where it's like, what do I do? Like, what's next? I don't know. Does that fairly like sum up like what, maybe like a summary of your current state of affairs would be good.
Right. Yeah, the current state is, at the beginning of the year, I was laid off as well. And like I said, I was working, as the last few years, I've been more of account manager, like real client relationship building, portfolio, growing our, the agency business sales through those clients. And it just, I think in this last role, it really hit me that I'm not happy. This is not what I want to do. I don't get energized in the morning. I'm kind of ADHD. So if there's something I really don't want to do, I find everything else in the room to do, but the chore I'm supposed to do, and then come back to it later.
Yeah, I can relate. The ADHD brain. Yep.
That's how I felt. And I realized, I think I manifested the layoff just because I was so unhappy and I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I started thinking, okay, I want to go back to brand management because that was kind of like my happy place. I really enjoyed that, or product marketing, which has become something I'm really interested in too. So I'm like, if I'm getting pulled into, my body or my mind is pulling me away from what I'm doing right now, there must be something to it. So I started doing a lot more reading on it, reaching out to people in these areas, just so I can wrap my head around whether or not it's really what I want to do. And I believe it's exactly what I want to do. So that's where I'm focusing on. And it is like, I'm going to have to pivot, this whole, the pivoting, kind of like what you did. And but I want to be able to do it in a way that is successful with a little less friction. Why recreate the wheel, getting out there and trying to figure out how I get myself in these rooms or in front of people or, whatever. I want to follow someone who's already done it, basically. I'm looking for mentors. I'm looking for that path on how I get.
So as you think back to your latest role, the one that you just left, what were the 3 things that you liked the most about it? And what were the 3 things that you liked the least about it?
I got to work from home. That was the one thing I liked about it.
You're real for that. It's a big deal.
You know what? I got to work from home. There's 2 things. I got to work from home and it was fairly good money. But money does not motivate me. It's doing something that I feel passionate about. It's something that I feel like I'm actually making a difference. That's another thing. If the product I don't believe in, it's really hard to sell something that you don't believe in.
Totally. I mean, that's actually what got me into fitness. Was I had a job offer at Crystal Burger, like a White Castle competitor, and the role at Gold's. And I don't eat meat. I'm like, what am I doing? So that's really what kind of like pivoted me into fitness. So I think it's super clear that you're at the place in your career where you know what you want to do and you know exactly what you don't want to do and what doesn't light your soul on fire. And the good news about that is that you can like reverse engineer yourself into it. So if it's writing down, okay, what are the 20 companies where I love their brand, I would be proud to represent their brand, I could market for their brand all day long, and reach out to those companies as like blind outreach to the CMO or even to the CEO and just say, hey, like, I love your brand. I would love to support you guys in whatever way. And can I send you my resume? And I think that's the better way to get yourself into that role than just like waiting on a job board, because you just don't find the good roles, like the kind of role that you're going to want. It's not going to be on the job board. It's going to be somebody that you directly connect with and maybe even have an existing relationship with.
Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting that I see happening now that might be an interesting like card for you to play, especially in the work from home world, is so many people are going fractional. And, there's differences between like who's fractional versus contractor versus, part-time, there's all nuances, and I'm no HR expert, but if you stack 3 consulting gigs on top of each other, there's your full-time role. And it may be interesting and just open you up to things that you hadn't considered before. So if you reach out to someone at a company that you love, and let's use like Rise Nutrition is here in Dallas, and like I know they're hiring, reach out to the team at Rise and just say, hey, like I love fitness, I love nutrition, like I love what you're doing, I see you growing, I'm happy to help, can I send you my resume? And if you get the response back like, oh, we're not hiring right now, okay, amazing, I also do fractional consulting and fractional marketing support, is that something you'd be interested in? And I could see your ADHD brain being able to handle fractional like a rock star, because you already have the marketing brain. Like a marketer's brain jumps between 17 things, like, oh, you need social media, you need an email, a pitch deck, like what are we jumping to? What are we jumping to? It's like you're constantly jumping. So you're already in a profession that suits your thinking style. Now multiply it by 3, take on 3 clients, and all of a sudden you jump around even more, but your brain is going to love it because it's going to be able to go where it is in whatever moment of time. And And your clients will love it because they'll get a seasoned, globally experienced marketer on their team for a fraction of the cost of what it would be to hire you as a full-time person. I think there's a lot of startup brands that can't go to like a full-time person, especially in marketing. As you know, like marketing gets cut first. So they don't want to like overinvest on the marketing front, but you could be the solution. Like, hey, I'm here for you. I understand where you're at and I'll go fractional with you. Like, is that a possibility? And that might be an interesting conversation to have with people.
That's actually a really good idea. And it's funny, I had my own right after I left Gold's Gym. I started my own little boutique brand marketing consultancy, and I had a few clients. I did that for about 6 years. And now you're bringing it back up. It's like, I feel like the universe is like, okay, Rania, I'm putting all these little breadcrumbs out in front of you, and you need to go ahead and take them, instead of me like, I'm just walking on the trail like, look at the sky. What do I do now?
Yeah.
I'm just doing the regular thing I think I'm supposed to do. But yeah, I think I will. I think that's a great idea, and I will kind of go back out and reach out and try to do some of that. I think that's a great idea.
Well, it's like everything in its season. And I mean, you and I come from corporate 9 to 5 kind of backgrounds, and there is a difficulty in switching your brain to a hustle, entrepreneurial kind of space. And it does get exhausting, and it does tear at your confidence sometimes. And so I could see where, like, if I was coming off of my Gold's Gym layoff, I don't think I could have stepped into entrepreneurship from that place, because I was just on a low. I was like, oh, I just got voted off the island. I got voted out of the family. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not relevant, and so I think it's always good to have those cleansing moments of like, okay, I know I need to be somewhere stable. I know I need to just reset. But I think you're in a place where, like, okay, you just reset. You had this stable account management role. You know your skills are good. You know they're applicable to today's marketing landscape. And so now what? And if you stay open, you could still pursue full-time jobs. You could still pursue job boards. You could still work with recruiters and say, I know I want to work in something that is connected to fitness or connected to something that I love, that I'm passionate about. You could still run all of those plays, but then open your mind to the fact that, like, you know what? I've been an entrepreneur before. I did well at it. It's scary, but I did it and I learned from it. And so starting back in an entrepreneurial pursuit the second time, like, what are the 3 things that you learned in your first entrepreneurial pursuit where you're like, okay, if I did it again, I would do like this differently, this differently, this differently?
Reach out to more people. Because I did, you said it was an island, and it really is. And I really just had my husband to support me, because it was, he's a serial entrepreneur. So
yeah, it's in your household.
Oh yeah, it's in the house. So I have a little bit of support, but he gets busy on his own thing. So you are on your own little island, which is another reason why after a couple of years, I did leave, because I wanted to be more involved with more people. But now I know that's kind of on me. I should reach out to more people to work together. I love collaboration. So that's one thing I didn't miss. So I'll do that, realize that I can do it. It's not as scary as that first time stepping on that entrepreneurial path. And then the third thing is that I learned from entrepreneurship is always keep learning. I hadn't been that great about that until recently. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be left behind if I don't continue my education. If I'm not reaching out to people, if I'm not getting mentored, if I'm not reading the articles, if I'm not, just immersing myself in more things that I really want to do to help build and make myself successful. So that's things.
Yeah, especially in marketing. And I feel that at 44, and I don't know if you've gone through this journey in your marketing career, but I knew early on as a young marketer that, like, my game is going to be dated so fast. And I feel that pressure now. And my boy, he's 13, and I know you posted about your boy the other day on LinkedIn. Like, I'm watching my son do things at a pace that I can't keep up with. So for me, it's definitely learning, but it's learning through a lens of, like, how do I activate younger talent, as opposed to how do I keep myself in a execution kind of seat? Like, because I can't execute at the pace that the kids execute. And, I'm not saying that to be generational, but yet I totally am. All of the articles that are Gen Z is so lazy and all of those headlines, it's crazy, especially from a marketing place, because the pace at which they work, the knowledge that they have on all of these platforms.
How things keep changing. I mean, they've changed a lot since, just 7 years ago. They've changed a lot. I mean, and then there's now AI that's moving in. So
Yeah, 7 months ago, like kind of 7 months to a year ago was AI. So you're totally right where it's like you have to keep that mindset of learning, and then maybe even on this next go, because you have your son and connections through your son, find a good person to partner with where you're not the solopreneur, but you have a complementary partner who's in it with you. So you feel even less on an island. I would suggest your husband, but I know that would be set up to fail. So I'll just say like there's somebody in your network somewhere who would say like, oh, you're working on this. I could, because I think I know your superpowers. Like, how would you define your superpowers?
Well, I think I'm personable, and I think a lot of people feel comfortable around me. I think that I put my customer first. I'm always thinking as a customer for my customer in order to, to make the brand better, the experience better. So I'm very focused on customer journey and the customer experience. That I think, as well as my ability to really connect with people. I think that those are my superpowers. What would you have said my superpower is?
I would say your superpower, I would have said it as like you can see the whole board, meaning you've worked in every aspect of marketing. So if you came to a client or if you got face to face with a client and the client kind of didn't know what they needed, it's not like you're coming to that conversation, oh, I know the PR side, so here's what you need from a PR side. No, it's truly like you could kind of diagnose their pain points holistically and see the whole board. And that's where I'm thinking then tying in with experts who are like, okay, and I know I can tag this person in, or I know I can even pull this partner into my business with me who's like a specialist in XYZ, whether it's AI or whether it's coding or whether it's, like whatever area you feel like your clients have the biggest pain point. Because I think if we play out like, okay, you relaunch your agency, you have existing relationships to kind of pull back on. You don't want to just rinse repeat what you did before. It's like, how do you reopen it? But then here's the twist on it that's going to make it even more enjoyable for you in life so that it clicks this time and stays with you and is the long-term solve, as opposed to like first go round was kind of like a Band-Aid solve. And it's like you. And the problem with building as a solopreneur, as you know, is the better you are at what you do, the stricter your jail becomes on yourself. You put yourself in jail. You're like, okay, I can't go out to dinner because I have to knock this thing out at 6 p.m. I can't, like, you start to like be a victim of your own success. So thinking of it as a structure of like, okay, if I relaunched it, here's what I would change so that as I'm more successful, I can have even more freedom. And I think the way you can get to that is by tagging in super smart people who have like the automations down, have the AI down, have the, all the things that kind of can streamline things. I think that's an interesting model that you could pursue you've already been successful with it once. So now it's like, how do you be successful with it again, but on a different level? So it brings you that happiness that you're looking for.
That's true. Because that is when you're trying to do all things, it becomes very overwhelming and it's hard to like context switch a lot, especially if you have more than one client. So yeah, those are good points. I'll definitely take that back. I like that.
Yeah. And you have no feedback loop. And so then you're at home on your island with your clients that you can't really be real with. You kind of need to be a filtered version of you with your clients. And so there's no, your connection to reality and what like sets your soul on fire, gets a little bit, you get distant from it. But I think that's an easy solve. And I think with a couple of tweaks, I think you could get back to that. But it's worth like, I'm big into like pursue all the things and see which one starts to flow super easily and then go after that. I think you probably saw my LinkedIn post where I posted, here's a summary of all of my social media efforts in 20, and I posted like 200 times on Instagram. And over that 200 times, I lost 3 followers. And of course my son is like, that's because you're cringy, maybe. But okay, then I posted 200 times on LinkedIn and I gained 800 followers. So it's like, just go where the path of least resistance is. I think sometimes we try to overthink it and we're missing like, what's the door that's open right in front of you? And I think the door that's open right in front of you is like, go build your thing again.
Go build it and they'll come.
Go build it. They won't come. You have to get on your LinkedIn grind. You know that I would call you out on that. It's right. Like get into a cadence of reaching out to people proactively on LinkedIn, but then also just posting your own stuff on on LinkedIn and just ignore everything else. And I think with those two things, you'd really be able to like get right back on the entrepreneurship horse and see how it goes round two.
So how are you doing now in your thing? I know you had Kick House, which I was shocked when you left that. I thought that was really cool, great name. It was a great concept. So when you left that and you've started a couple of more things. I can't tell what's going on, but I know you've got stuff. You always got stuff like kind of waiting in the wings. There's always these teasers, and I'm like, when's she gonna drop? It's like I'm waiting.
Maybe never. Who knows? I'm so proud of what I built and the team built with Kick House, and it, let's say it like destroyed me to leave. And I would parallel it to being at Gold's, for 3 years and like getting like voted off the island. I spent 3 years building a company that like largely was attached to my name. And it's, you come off of something like that and you're like, you have that moment of like, what now? Am I relevant? Like, are my skills applicable?
How do you even doubt that when you built something like that and you come off of it? I don't even see how you can even question. I'm amazed that you have that question in your head. You're like a phoenix and you keep like coming out of it.
Well, and that's the thing. I sit in the imposter syndrome for weeks, months sometimes. At Gold's, it was like a good 6 months like that. I sat in imposter syndrome and sat in like, what do I do? Like, who am I? Am I valuable? And honestly, the way that I get over imposter syndrome is just to get out of that place and just keep my brain busy with building something new. So we're working on Flex Society. It's a fitness boutique concept that's not dissimilar to like what I've worked on at Club Pilates, not dissimilar to what I've worked on at Kick House. But then in parallel to that and in complement to that, I'm rolling out a marketing/advertising agency. By the time this comes out, it's probably going to be live. So we're going to have Flex Society is a fitness brand, Sizzle Society is our marketing brand, and then podcast is going to be the Society Pod. It's just a little like ecosystem of things that I can play in and put my strengths towards or put my efforts towards. So instead of just having a personal brand that I post from and try to build, let's build a business from it. I've put 25 years into building a reputation. So, okay, let's monetize the reputation and build a marketing agency, because that's what I'm asked to do all the time, is just marketing consulting, advertising consulting. And I will tell you, 5 weeks ago now, I interviewed for a full-time job because I was in the exact same spot as you, where I'm like, what do I do next? And I just have to stay open to everything. And I flew out, interviewed with the company, like felt great about the interview, from franchising background to marketing background to team building background. Like, I was a great fit for this role. And at the end of the day, they went with a different candidate. And what they said was it was largely geographic, because I'm in Dallas right now. I don't want to move. And I wasn't close enough to some of their like good locations. Okay, fine. But to me, it's bigger than that. It's like, okay, the universe is telling me, do your thing, girl. Like, don't do it under somebody else's umbrella. Build your own umbrella. Like, you have all the tools to build your own umbrella.
Yeah.
And it is daunting. You've done it before. I've done it before. You still have those fears. What the heck am I doing? And so then all I'm doing is I'm listening to the Gary Vee podcast daily, because I'm like, okay, like he's leaving breadcrumbs of like what to do. I'm listening to the Tim Ferriss podcast almost daily, like leaving breadcrumbs, like what to do, how to launch a podcast, how to like leverage this to leverage this to leverage this. So I think it's the same. It's like, get inputs in that are in line with what you're thinking you want to do. The universe is going to start to open doors and or shut doors pretty dramatically, like you experienced in January. Like, no, this is not right. So I think you start to consume things very intentionally and like consume only the things that are good things going in, and not, there's so much like drama online, but there's so much great information online. So like, have good conversations with people, listen to podcasts, maybe go on podcasts, because one of the things that Tim Ferriss says about podcasting is when you have a podcast, it helps you get clear in your own brain, because you have to say things out loud. I think you have so much clarity, but you're not you're not feeling it because the door isn't wide open in front of you at this exact moment. Or maybe it is wide open in front of you and you just don't feel like it is.
I feel like I'm still trying to get clear. I am clear. It's just the steps to get back. I'm clear, but it's like, well, but the full-time job would be so much more stable. And, it was great. I was rocking and rolling. And then it's like, I know personally that that's not the long-term goal for me to work full-time for someone else. I would like to get into a bunch of little things just like you're getting into. So yeah, maybe I need to face it head on and be like, okay, the universe is like slapping me in the face and I'm just not listening, and I need to listen.
I think you could continue down all the paths, but then just stay open to, like, there's other options other than a 9 to 5 in marketing for a brand you love. As you know, marketing is so picky about putting people into roles when they don't have exact industry experience. And I have an MBA and suffered through this. The only way I was able to go from restaurant marketing to fitness marketing was because of franchising. And I had franchising as like an expertise. And so like that helped me transfer. But if you were going to go and try to be in beauty product marketing, they're going to say, oh, well, you don't have beauty product marketing expertise. And you and I both know marketing is marketing, and the philosophies around it remain the same, but hiring managers will want to see that direct experience. So either you have to be really bold and pushy about it and like get connected to the right people who can get you in, or be open to structuring it in a way that you're an agency or a consultant that supports a beauty direct to consumer kind of company, or because you have that entrepreneurial bone in your body, like go super young and super scrappy and just reach out to the newest of new direct to consumer beauty companies. Just using that as a random example, but it's extreme enough. Your fitness experience wouldn't direct connect to e-commerce. It's that picky. So go to somebody super small who's in that lane and side hustle and stack a few together. And all of a sudden you've created an agency that specializes in direct to consumer beauty marketing. But between us, we know you pursued it and created it based on fractional support, based on like hat in hand. Like, I will help you with your marketing for very few dollars. And I know exactly what I'm doing because I'm, 25-year marketing expert. So I don't know. I think those are interesting paths to pursue.
See, you give me more stuff to think about.
More homework.
I'm already overwhelmed. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. So that's awesome. I appreciate that. That was good stuff. I wanted to ask you how, we talked about your downs, your times that you've been down, and you're up and you're down and you're up and you're down. We all have them. How do you, one, I know you said you pull yourself out of it, but how are you doing that? And then two, how are you getting in front of people? I feel like I know what you're going to say here. How are you getting in front of people that are good for you, that are doing what you want to do and you want to emulate and you want to be in front of them and do what they're doing?
So I've been laid off 3 times. The first 2 jobs out of college I was laid off from, and then from Gold's Gym. And the way that I talk about that Gold's Gym experience is like, it was my dream job to work in marketing for a fitness company. In that moment, I loved what I did. And I think you loved what you did. It was like such a great brand to work on. I loved working with the franchise owners. So I was like voted off the island, lowest of low. And now going through my Kickhouse exit, lowest of low in some ways. And I think I'm better now at like comeback season than I was at Gold's. So I'm going to give you like what I do now. What I did then: be sad, sit in my closet, cry, question my life, question my value. Okay, so what I'm doing now is,
I'm in that season.
But we all fall into it. And I'll tell you, the higher you climb, the farther you fall.
Yeah.
So the falls get worse. They suck. And it's important to be able to develop the comeback skills. And so my comeback game is intense. I'm more intense about a comeback season than I am about my work season. So comeback season is I'm not drinking anything. Because where I drink alcohol, like I'll go to a dark place, right? And you'll be on that emotional roller coaster. No alcohol, no sugar, all food into my fitness pal. Like I am locking down inputs to control my outputs, and not just from a business perspective, but I'm going food. I'm going like workouts every day. I'm going cold plunge. I'm going like control every single controllable that I can, so that I'm at least mentally and physically positioned at my best. so that I can get through this comeback season. So in my ears at the gym, I'm not like rocking out. Sometimes I'll go Taylor Swift style, but most of the time it's like Gary Vee podcast, Tim Ferriss podcast, Ed Milet podcast. Tell me something, like something is what I need to hear today, and it's going to click. And then, oh, by the way, that's the stuff that I post on LinkedIn, which is the other, the obvious piece of this, which I'm going to brag you about. But to me, that's comeback season. And to me, it's keeping my brain in a logical execution kind of place, and it's not allowing my brain to go to an emotional place, because the moment I go to an emotional place, I'm in tears. I am worthless. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm uncertain. I'm on shaky ground. And like whenever you're feeling on shaky ground, you just don't make good decisions. Staying in a logical place. And then your second part of that question is like, who do you connect with? Anyone who's at all weak of mind or weak of place in life or position in life, I'm out. I can't right now. I'll come back to you. I'm here for you at some point, but like right now I'm in my own shit right now that I have to get out of. For me, with you, time out right now. I'm talking to people who know me. I'm talking to people who could build with me. I'm talking to people who have built with me before. I'm talking to people who believe in me. Or I'm talking to no one, but I'm in that rebuilding mode of like in my own stuff, in my own mind, in my own body. The strength of controlling your controllables is such an underutilized tool for everyone. And you're in the fitness games, the connection between like, what are you doing movement wise? What are you doing nutrition wise? And how that impacts like mental clarity wise. And the problem that people get into is, okay, you're laid off. You start eating bad. You stop working out. You stop connecting with the world. You question your life. And it's this downward spiral. The way I navigate comeback season is I just stack a positive spiral. And sometimes the stack starts so small because that's all I can handle. Make my coffee this morning. Check. Win. Okay, good. Go for a walk. Okay, check. Good. Like we're coming back. You start to focus on, I need this big win. I need this new role. I need this new direction in life. And you overlook like every single small win that stacks up to that. Break it down as small as you want to, as small as you can, so that it feels like you're building momentum. Small positive choice stacks on top of small positive choice, stacks on small positive choice.
On stacks.
Yeah. And honestly,
positive spiral up.
It starts a positive spiral. And for me, I put LinkedIn posting in that positive spiral. Am I posting on LinkedIn this week? Yes. Okay, done. Check. Am I pulling it over to Twitter? Yes. Okay, check. Like it's just like a to-do list thing. That's a positive thing. It's people get stuck because they think you go from sitting on the couch sad because you've gone through a layoff to like jump to next gig and it's amazing. It's like, no, there's so many steps in between, and just start taking those baby steps, control the controllables, and connect with great people. It's like super passionate about people posting on LinkedIn, but just reaching out to people on LinkedIn blind, so many people will write back and say, oh yeah, sure, I'm happy to jump on a call with you, or happy to do this, or you'll rarely get a no. And I think we're so hesitant to ask. And that's partly why I want to do this podcast format, because I think we need to encourage, like, connect more, ask questions more, like be more curious. And the idea, especially in entrepreneurship, that we have to figure it out all on our own. You force yourself into solopreneurship. No, even if you are somebody who's a solopreneur working on your business by yourself, you still need outside connection and you still need outside resources. So when you get stuck on a problem, pick up the phone, you call, you're like, hey, I'm stuck on this. Do you have an answer? And people will share.
I'm learning. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I needed to hear that today.
You know what's funny though? We're both in this like work from home mode, and you kind of go like antisocial sometimes. And I think of like networking as like, you can network simply by reaching out to people on social media or commenting on their social media posts. You don't need these broad, big, like, hey, let's grab coffee kind of thing. You can do like, hey, 15-minute phone calls, jump on a Zoom. Like that counts as networking. So especially for people who are in work from home mode and the thought of leaving the house is terrifying, figure out a way that you can still connect with great people and build your network, but you can do it. You can do it over Zoom, and you can build relationships remote, and you're not limited to, I must attend however many conferences.
Because you had mentioned something about the small wins, because I think a lot of people see someone being really, really successful, but they don't see all the little, the highs and the lows and the little small increments that led up to that. It's kind of like what Jay-Z said. Everybody wants to basically be me and do what I do, but they don't want to be in that. They don't want to do what it takes to be in that. And I think for some reason, and I know better, but sometimes I do get into the mindset of, I need to do this, but I'm not ready yet, or I can't put myself out there because I'm not Jessica, or I'm not Gary Vee, or I'm not such and such, because I don't, you guys have worked at that and I haven't yet. So I think that's another reason why it's so hard for me to start posting on LinkedIn, just putting myself out there, because I'm like, imposter syndrome. Why would anybody listen to me? Do I want to put myself out there? And I'm worried about what other people might think about me. And, am I going to be, what if I fail? That is the biggest one. And I think when you take emotion out of it, like you were saying earlier, take emotion out of it and you really break it down. I think we're all in the same space and we're all just kind of figuring it out, and we all have imposter syndrome, and it just takes putting one foot in front of the other to manifest what you want and to get where you want to be. You're not going to get anywhere if you're just sitting there dreaming about it.
Yeah. And the goal is not to get rid of your imposter syndrome. If you're pushing yourself hard enough in your career, in your goals, you should always feel some level of imposter syndrome. When I wake up and I have those, oh crap, I'm not ready for this moment. Oh, like today, starting a podcast with you, you're truly going to be like podcast number 1 or 2. I feel that for sure. I feel that fear of like, am I ready for this? Is this going to be good at all? Is anybody going to care? But I think the habit you have to get yourself into is do it anyway, because it's part of it. You grow because you're afraid. You grow because you don't feel ready. You don't feel confident, but you're going to do it anyway. And your day one is going to look different than my day one. And you can't compare yourself to anyone other than you. You can compare from a standpoint of learning. People leave breadcrumbs, and I watch a lot of creators, and Gary Vee is one of my like major creators that I follow. But I just posted the other day, like I will specifically just copy something that he has done because I'm watching it and he's like, this works. I'm like, okay, great. Let me try it. And let me continue to evolve my game because I see how he's playing the game. And so my ecosystem is going to be baby ecosystem compared to his ecosystem. But there's breadcrumbs that he's leaving that I can pick up on and say, okay, let me apply that to my own game down the path. You would realize that you have a lot of breadcrumbs to leave for the next person, and you're just not holding yourself accountable to leaving them for the next person. There are days where I think about what I'm posting and I'm thinking about my audience as me, and I'm looking at my stuff and I'm like, I'm so cringy. I don't know what I'm talking about. What am I doing? And then I just flip my mindset and I'm like, think about it as you're leaving it for your boy, or you're leaving it for a 20-something who's just starting out, and putting yourself in that headspace of, I don't know everything, but I know something. I know I've worked at one of the largest globally known brands in the world. I know I've launched a business myself. I know I've done like XYZ, and you have things that you've learned along the way that somebody who's just out of school is going to say, oh my gosh, yeah, like that's an interesting breadcrumb. That's an interesting way to look at it. And even starting this podcast, I'm kind of thinking like, what would I say that no one else has said before? But then I realized that's not the point. The point is just for me to be able to check the box of like, did I pay it forward? Did I leave every single breadcrumb that I could leave for the next person? Did I translate my knowledge of entrepreneurship and franchising and fitness in a way that makes it digestible for somebody who's coming up?
I think it is. You can also say the same thing someone else said, but it's you that they're going to listen to. It's kind of like your kid. Your kid's not going to listen to you if you say the sky is blue, but their friend tells them the sky is blue. They say it in a way that they're like, oh yeah, the sky is blue. I'm glad you told me that. I mean, sometimes you can have the same message told by 10 different people, and that one person is going to stick because you connect to that person. And that, I think, is why you're a force. And I think you're going to be successful because you say in the way that's honest, that's in the way that only you tell it, even if you think it's cringy, or your son says it's cringy. You're not cringy. Your son says it's cringy. But you know what? It spoke to me. I don't listen to Gary Vee as much as you do, but I like Gary Vee, but he's not my person. I listen to you. It's the personal connection, maybe it's because I've seen your struggle. I see myself in you sometimes. And so I'm like, I want to be, or I can follow her because she's going through similar things. So it's just, I think there's a connection. It's the message and it's the connection.
Yeah. Here's a different framework that I think could connect to you. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and a lot of the best podcasts, in terms of like listenership in the business space, are male dominated. Yeah. So to your exact point, if I could even do what they do, but make it accessible to women who are coming up in their careers or women who are coming up in entrepreneurship, okay, that can be my space and I could sit there. For you, you're not only a woman, but you're a woman of color. And Sam on my team, she's Latina. I keep on saying to her, like, you are obligated to show up for your community because they wouldn't look at me and be able to connect with me. The fact that she's bilingual, she speaks that language and can directly connect with that audience in a way that I would never be able to. So I think to your point, you could say the exact same things. You could speak to the exact same topics, but you're speaking through a lens of like, it's you, and no one else would be able to see it that way. So I think you have an obligation, and I know I've given you the homework, but I think there's like an obligation that you need to step into that place, because you have, if I'm a young woman of color who is trying to think through, how do I get to a executive level career, let alone in marketing, let alone in fitness, who do you look to? So I think that's got to be you. Like, you have to step into that. You have to step into that superpower, because nobody's there. And I think it's an obligation. And so wherever you have those moments of like imposter syndrome or cringeness, or that's how I wrap my head around it, is like, there's something bigger to it. It's not self-serving. It's serving the next. And hopefully that's a lens that can get you through your fears.
Let me simmer in that a little bit.
Simmer with that for a little bit. We'll have a follow-up podcast with you in a couple months. We'll see where you're at. We'll do a version 2 with you. But thank you so much for participating and for being podcast guest number 1. And I believe in you. I know you'll do big things, but mostly what I wish for you is to do big things that you love. Because you've earned the right at this point. I know you've earned the right at this point to do something that you love, that makes you happy, that plays in your strengths, that plays in your superpowers. So I wish that for you.
I appreciate it. And I wish that for you. I know it's happening for you. So I'll be watching.
We're going to force it to happen.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Society Pod.